Emma Carter always used to tease me about being 2 minutes older than her. During our childhood, she would climb into my lap during family gatherings and say, "Since you caught me first, you have to protect me forever." She had always been possessive. If any girl in school tried to approach me, she would glare at them and whisper threats. "If you don't back off, I'll make sure you regret it," she'd say, scaring them away. But in the end, she fell in love with someone else. Ryan Walker was nothing like me. He grew up in a rough neighborhood, played the guitar on street corners, and had nothing to his name but dreams. But Emma loved him anyway. She broke off our engagement in front of both our families, standing tall despite the whispers and protests. Her voice was unwavering as she said the words that would haunt me for years. "If I can't be with Ryan, I'd rather marry a stray dog than you." That day, I realized that everything we had meant nothing to her. I left for New York, determined to bury the past. For years, I refused to look back. Now I'm finally home. But so is she. Emma and I had grown up side by side, our families intertwined in ways that made our engagement seem inevitable. Our parents had been business partners for decades, and from the moment we were old enough to walk, it was understood that we belonged together. For most of my life, I had believed it too. She was my best friend, my constant shadow, the girl who had always been there. Even as children, she would pull me toward her, demanding my attention, making sure I never strayed too far. But time changes people. Somewhere along the way, Emma changed. Or maybe I did. By the time we reached high school, she was no longer content with the life our families had mapped out for us. She wanted something different, something wild, and she found it in Ryan Walker. Ryan was everything I wasn't. Reckless, passionate, free. He had no money, no future, but he had a way of making Emma laugh in a way I never could. He played guitar at underground bars, sang about love and heartbreak, and promised her a life filled with excitement. I saw it happening. I watched her slip further away with every stolen glance, every whispered phone call, every excuse she made to avoid spending time with me. And then came the night that changed everything. It was supposed to be our engagement dinner, a celebration of the life we were meant to build together. Both of our families were gathered in my father's estate, raising glasses of champagne, toasting to the future. But Emma had other plans. She stood up, her voice cutting through the laughter, and declared that she couldn't go through with it. The room fell silent. My mother's hand trembled around the stem of her wine glass. My father's jaw clenched. I just stared at her, not understanding. "I love someone else," she said, her voice strong, unwavering. "I can't marry Daniel." Whispers erupted around the table. My uncle coughed awkwardly. My aunt gasped. But Emma wasn't finished. She turned to me, eyes burning with defiance, and smiled. "If I can't be with Ryan, I'd rather marry a stray dog than you." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I felt my breath catch, my stomach twist. I had known, of course I had known, that she had feelings for someone else. But I had never expected her to humiliate me like this, in front of everyone. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then my father stood, his face pale with rage. "Emma," he said sharply, "you don't know what you're saying." "I do," she insisted. "I love Ryan. I've always loved Ryan." Ryan wasn't even there. He hadn't bothered to show up. I pushed back my chair and stood, my hands clenched into fists. The weight of every expectation, every carefully planned future, every promise we had made as children, crashed down around me. If she wanted out, fine. I wouldn't beg. I turned on my heel and walked away. A week later, I left for New York. I buried myself in work, in ambition, in anything that would help me forget her. For years, I refused to think about Emma Carter. And now, 7 years later, I was back in Los Angeles. Stronger, colder, indifferent. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But when I walked into the welcome party thrown in my honor, the first person I saw was her. Emma Carter, standing across the room, looking just as beautiful as ever. And for the first time in years, I felt something dangerous stir inside me. I had thought I was over her. I was wrong. 7 years had passed since I last set foot in Los Angeles. 7 years since I walked away from my past, from my family, from her. I had left as a man betrayed, humiliated in front of everyone I once trusted. But I was no longer that man. Now, I was Daniel Miller, CEO of Miller Enterprises, a name that carried weight in the business world. I had built my own empire, far away from the expectations of my family, far away from Emma Carter. But as I stepped into the grand ballroom of the Blackwood Hotel, where the welcome party was being held in my honor, I felt the weight of old ghosts creeping in. The chandeliers cast a golden glow over the room, filled with Los Angeles elite, business moguls, celebrities, people who once whispered about my downfall. I scanned the crowd, nodding at familiar faces, shaking hands with men who had once dismissed me. And then I saw her. Emma Carter stood across the room. For a brief second, our eyes met. She looked different. The vibrant, confident woman who once commanded every room was gone. In her place stood someone quieter, more hesitant, as if she no longer belonged in the world she had once thrived in. She tensed, her fingers tightening around the stem of her champagne glass. Then, as if realizing she had been caught staring, she quickly turned away. I smirked. She wasn't expecting me to come back. Good. I turned my attention back to the guests around me, keeping her in my peripheral vision. She wasn't alone. Standing beside her, looking far removed from the man I once knew, was Ryan Walker. I almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the charismatic musician, the dreamer she had thrown everything away for. In his place was a washed-up, exhausted man, his once sharp features now overshadowed by dark circles and an unkempt beard. The Ryan Walker I remembered had swagger, a devil-may-care attitude that made girls swoon. The Ryan Walker standing here tonight looked defeated. His suit was ill-fitted, like he had borrowed it or bought it second-hand. His eyes darted nervously around the room, as if searching for an escape. And when he leaned in to whisper something to Emma, she barely acknowledged him. Interesting. I grabbed a glass of whiskey from a passing waiter and took a slow sip. Watching as Ryan tugged at his collar, clearly uncomfortable in this setting. I didn't have to ask to know why he was here. Emma had once rejected the life I could offer her for a man with nothing but promises and cheap love songs. Now, it seemed those promises had run dry. The evening carried on, filled with polite conversations and business discussions. Every now and then, I caught Emma glancing at me, her lips pressed together like she wanted to say something but couldn't. She never approached. She just stood there, caught between the past she chose and the future she lost. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. If she wanted to talk, she would have to be the one to come to me. And then, as if fate had a sense of humor, I heard Ryan's voice cut through the noise. "So, Miller," he called out, forcing a grin as he stepped forward. "Look at you now. Big shot CEO, huh?" The room quieted slightly, eyes turned toward us. I let out a slow breath, turned my gaze to him and smiled. "Yes, it's called hard work. You should try it sometime." A few muffled chuckles sounded from nearby guests. Ryan's smile faltered. Emma stiffened beside him. He forced a laugh. "Still got that sharp tongue, I see." He took a sip of his drink, then shrugged. "Must be nice, huh? Having everything handed to you." I tilted my head, pretending to consider his words. "Everything?" I repeated, voice calm. "Funny, last I checked, you were the one who had Emma's love, her loyalty, everything I was supposed to have. Tell me, Ryan, how's that working out for you?" Silence. A flicker of shame crossed Ryan's face before he quickly masked it with irritation. He downed the rest of his drink, set the glass aside and scoffed. "Yeah, well, life's not a fairy tale." I chuckled, taking another sip of whiskey. "No, it isn't." I turned my gaze to Emma, my voice dropping just slightly. "Some of us learn that the hard way." Her eyes widened, just a fraction. Ryan muttered something under his breath, grabbed Emma's wrist, and pulled her toward the exit. She didn't resist, not once. I watched as they disappeared through the doors, my grip tightening slightly around my glass. For 7 years I had told myself that I didn't care, that she wasn't worth my thoughts, my time, my energy. But standing there watching her walk away with the man she had chosen over me, I realized something. She wasn't the same Emma Carter I once loved, and I wasn't the same Daniel Miller she once abandoned. The next time we met, I wasn't going to just be an observer. I was going to make sure she knew exactly what she lost. People say love fades over time. I never used to believe that. But then again, I never thought Emma Carter would choose someone like Ryan Walker over me. I hadn't thought about their marriage in years. Not really. But seeing them again at the party, seeing the way Emma avoided my gaze, the way Ryan fidgeted like he didn't belong, I knew. Whatever fantasy she had built in her mind about love, about passion, about freedom, had come crashing down. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I felt satisfaction or something else entirely. Emma had chosen Ryan because he made her feel alive, because he made her heart race, because he promised her a life of music and adventure. But reality is much harsher than pretty words and love songs. I had heard things over the years, whispers in business circles, a friend of a friend who saw Ryan drinking too much at some dive bar. Rumors that Emma was working, that Ryan's career never took off the way he swore it would. And then, of course, there were the undeniable facts. The way she looked at me at the party, the way she looked at him. That wasn't love. That was regret. I pictured it too easily. The fights, the late nights, the bills piling up. If you hadn't made me settle down so soon, I could have made something of myself, Ryan would have said, slamming a stack of overdue notices onto the kitchen counter. Emma, still clinging to the dream she had thrown her life away for, would have stayed silent, because she was too proud to admit she had made a mistake. Then would come the real cracks. The nights Ryan didn't come home, the drinking, the excuses, the fights that never seemed to end, and then, finally, the betrayal. It must have been humiliating. Walking into some rundown bar only to see the man she gave up everything for flirting with someone else. I imagined her standing there, frozen in place, as Ryan leaned in close to some woman who wasn't her, whispering the same lies he used to tell Emma. Ryan? She would have said his name in that sharp, clipped way she always did when she was angry. He would have looked up, annoyed more than guilty. Emma? What the hell are you doing here? And when she demanded an explanation, when she asked him how he could do this to her, he would have just laughed, called her dramatic, told her she was imagining things, maybe even said something cruel enough to shut her up for good. I could see it so clearly. And the worst part? I wasn't surprised. Emma Carter was a lot of things. Beautiful, stubborn, reckless. But the thing about people like her, they never admit when they're wrong. She wouldn't have left him. Not that night. Maybe not even after a dozen nights like that. Because if she left, if she admitted that Ryan was a mistake, then she would have to admit something else too. That she never should have left me. It started with a phone call. An unknown number flashed across my screen, but I didn't answer. A minute later, a text came through. Daniel, can we talk? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. 7 years of silence, and now she wanted to talk. I put the phone down and got back to work. She didn't give up easily. A few days later, I walked out of my office to find her waiting near the building's entrance. She looked hesitant, almost unsure of herself, a far cry from the Emma I once knew. Daniel, she said, stepping forward. I kept walking. Daniel, please. Her voice stopped me, not because it held any power over me anymore, but because I wanted to see how far she was willing to go. I turned, meeting her gaze with calm indifference. Emma, she swallowed hard, as if she hadn't expected me to acknowledge her. I just wanted to see you. It's been a long time. I studied her for a moment. She looked different, tired, worn down, like life hadn't been kind to her. But that wasn't my problem. Yes, it has, I said flatly. A flicker of something crossed her face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. Can we talk? Maybe get a coffee? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Emma, we're not friends. She flinched, just barely. I know. I thought maybe. You thought wrong. The words were cold, deliberate. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say more, but in the end, she didn't. She just nodded. I walked away, leaving her standing there alone. That weekend, I attended an exclusive gala at the Blackwood Hotel. A room filled with Los Angeles' wealthiest, the kind of people who thrived on reputation and status, and apparently Emma was there too. I spotted her near the bar, standing alone, fingers gripping the stem of her wine glass. She had been noticed, just not in the way she would have wanted. Charlotte Davenport, the wife of a powerful investor, stood with a group of women a few feet away, whispering behind perfectly manicured nails. I still can't believe she chose Ryan Walker over Daniel, Charlotte mused, voice loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Another woman laughed. And look where that got her. What's the phrase? Traded a diamond for a rock? More laughter. Emma stiffened, but she didn't turn around. I watched as the color drained from her face, her grip tightening around the glass. Years ago, she had stood in a room just like this one and humiliated me without hesitation. Now she was the one on the receiving end. I should have felt vindicated. But I felt nothing at all. She lifted her chin slightly, forcing herself to remain composed, but I saw it. The tension in her shoulders, the way she swallowed hard. For the first time, Emma Carter understood what it felt like to be abandoned. And I walked away. I had told myself that I was done thinking about her, that I had moved on. But then, on a quiet afternoon, her name flashed across my screen. Emma Carter. She was calling me. I let the phone ring until it stopped. A minute later, a message appeared. Emma, Daniel, can we talk? Please. I stared at the text for a long moment before locking my phone and setting it aside. Some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. I had heard things about her marriage. Not that I cared, at least, that's what I told myself. Ryan Walker, once the charming dreamer she had thrown everything away for, had become exactly the kind of man I always knew he would be. A failure, a liar, a man who never followed through. And Emma? She had spent years pretending everything was fine. But the cracks were starting to show. Ryan barely came home anymore. He stayed out all night, wasting what little money they had left on drinks and empty promises. When he did return, he reeked of cheap perfume and whiskey. And Emma? She had stopped asking where he had been. Because she already knew. She just didn't want to say it out loud. It happened on a Tuesday night. Emma had waited up for him again. The clock ticked past 3 a.m. and she was still sitting on the couch, staring at the door. When it finally creaked open, Ryan stumbled in, his shirt wrinkled, the scent of another woman's perfume clinging to his skin. She stood. Ryan? Not now, Emma, he muttered, rubbing his temples. I'm tired. She swallowed the bitterness rising in her throat. We need to talk. Ryan let out a harsh laugh. Do we? He tossed his jacket onto the floor and collapsed onto the couch. Because I'm pretty sure all you do is talk. And honestly, I'm sick of hearing it. Emma's hands clenched into fists. Sick of hearing it? Her voice trembled, but she refused to back down. You don't even come home anymore. You don't call. You don't. Ryan cut her off with a sharp look. Emma, you're nothing but dead weight to me now. Silence. The words hit harder than she expected. He leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. I need a real woman who can support me. Her breath caught. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand how dare he say that to her after everything she had given up for him. But instead, she just stood there. Because deep down she knew he had never loved her the way she had loved him. And maybe, just maybe, he never had. Pride is a dangerous thing. Emma Carter had always been proud. But that night, sitting alone in the apartment that no longer felt like home, she swallowed it. She picked up her phone. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through her contacts, past the people who had stopped calling, past the friends who had long since abandoned her. And then she found his name, Daniel Miller. Her finger hovered over the call button. For 7 years she had told herself that she had made the right choice, that she had chosen love over security, that she had chosen passion over stability. But now, sitting in the ruins of her decisions, she wondered if she had chosen wrong all along. She pressed the button, the phone rang, once, twice, and then he answered. Emma. His voice was calm, unshaken, unbothered. She closed her eyes. God, she had missed that voice. Daniel, she whispered. A pause. Then, why are you calling me? Her throat tightened. Because I made a mistake. Because I miss you. Because you were the only one who ever truly loved me. But all she said was, I need to see you. Silence. Then a quiet, humorless chuckle. Now you come looking for me? Her breath hitched. I'm not the man who waits around anymore, Emma. And then just like that, he hung up. Emma sat in the dark, phone still clutched in her hands. She had never truly understood what regret felt like. Not when she left Daniel. Not even when her marriage started to crumble. But now, she did. Because now she knew. She had lost the only person who had ever truly loved her. And there was no way to get him back. I hadn't heard from Emma since the night she called me. I didn't expect to. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Because a week later, I saw her again. And this time, she wasn't the woman who had once stood so proudly beside Ryan Walker. This time, she looked like a woman who had lost everything. The rumors reached me before she did. Ryan Walker, once the charming, rebellious dreamer, had been exposed for exactly who he always was. A fraud, a liar, a parasite. He had been using Emma's money, what little she had left, to wine and dine other women, to buy them gifts, hotel rooms, vacations she had never been invited on. And Emma? She had no idea. Not until the receipts started piling up. Not until she found credit card statements with charges she never made. Not until she walked into a restaurant and saw him, sitting across from a younger woman, laughing like he had no care in the world. Emma had confronted him right there. But Ryan? He hadn't even blinked. Ryan, she had hissed, voice shaking. He looked up lazily as if she had interrupted something important. Emma, he said, tone almost bored. What are you doing here? Her hands clenched into fists. What am I doing here? What the hell are you doing here? Ryan sighed, setting his drink down. The woman across from him, a brunette, no older than 22, twirled her hair around her finger, looking vaguely amused. Emma, Ryan said, stretching his arms as if this was all just an inconvenience. Don't be dramatic. Her chest tightened. Dramatic? Her voice rose. I've been paying our bills while you've been spending my money on someone else? Ryan tilted his head, considering that. Then, with a slow, lazy smirk, he said, Did you really think I loved you? Silence. The words hit harder than any slap ever could. Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. Emma, you were just a stepping stone. She felt her breath hitch. You paid the rent. You bought the groceries. You let me chase my dreams without holding me back. He leaned back, crossing his arms. But you and I both knew it was never going to last. Emma felt like she might collapse right there in the middle of the restaurant. Ryan sighed, pulled something from his jacket, and slid it across the table. Divorce papers. Just sign them, he said, standing up. I'd say I'm sorry, but honestly, I'm not. Then he walked out. And just like that, Emma Carter was left with nothing. I heard about it 2 days later. A friend mentioned it in passing, smirking over a glass of whiskey. Guess Walker finally showed his true colors, took everything she had and walked away like she was nothing. I didn't respond, because I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not pity, not satisfaction, just nothing. Because I had seen this coming from the beginning. She had chosen him. She had given up everything for him. And now she was just another one of his mistakes. I hadn't thought about Emma Carter in weeks, or at least I told myself that. But then I saw her again. Not at a gala, not draped in diamonds, laughing among the city's elite. This time she was carrying a tray, dressed in a server's uniform, weaving through a crowd of people who once worshipped her. And she looked different. It was a restaurant I frequented for business meetings, a place reserved for the powerful and wealthy, a place where Emma Carter used to be a guest, not the help. But there she was, balancing a tray in one hand, setting down drinks with the kind of forced politeness that came with knowing people were watching, whispering, judging. I saw it in the way she kept her head down, how she avoided eye contact. I saw the way old acquaintances, people who once envied her, now barely acknowledged her existence, their gazes lingering just long enough to remind her of what she had lost. And for a reason I didn't care to examine, I watched, not with sympathy, not with pity, just curiosity. How far had she fallen, and how much further did she have left to go? I wasn't paying attention at first. My focus was on the business deal in front of me, the contract waiting to be signed. Then I heard her voice, tense, uncomfortable, a warning hidden beneath forced politeness. "Sir, I think you've had enough to drink." I looked up. A man, one of those wealthy investors who thought money gave him ownership of whatever he desired, was leaning too close to Emma. His fingers brushed against her wrist, lingering there too long. She tensed, pulling away, and he smiled, the kind of smile I had seen too many times before. A predator's smile. Emma tried to step back. He grabbed her wrist, and before I even thought about it, I was standing up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "Take your hands off her." The man blinked, slow and sluggish, as if his alcohol-soaked brain was still registering what just happened. He turned, eyes narrowing. "Who the hell?" Then he saw me. Recognition dawned. He knew my name, knew what it meant, knew that I was someone he didn't want to cross. He let go. "Didn't know she was yours," he muttered, brushing off his suit jacket like it was all just a misunderstanding. I exhaled slowly, biting back the urge to correct him. "She isn't." My voice was calm, sharp, cold, "but that doesn't mean she's yours either." The man held up his hands, backing away. Emma didn't move. I turned back to my table, ready to walk away. But then, "Daniel," her voice stopped me. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. I met her gaze, and there it was again, that flicker of something I didn't want to name. "Thank you," she said softly. I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "I wasn't helping you," I said, voice void of warmth. Her brow furrowed. "Then why?" I glanced at the man who had touched her, then back at her, expression unreadable. "I just don't like seeing something disgusting." Then, before she could say anything else, I walked away. I didn't look back, didn't care to see her reaction. But somehow, I knew. I knew that despite my words, despite everything I had done to push her away, Emma Carter still believed there was something left to save. And maybe that was the cruelest part of all. I wasn't keeping tabs on Emma Carter. That's what I told myself. But every so often, I'd hear things. Someone mentioned she had gone back to school, taking business courses at a small college downtown. Another time, I saw her at a networking event, standing in the back, listening instead of leading. She was trying to rebuild herself. And somehow, I didn't know how I felt about that. Los Angeles is a big city, but not big enough. I ran into her more often than I expected. A coffee shop, a hotel lobby, a bookstore where I was picking up a biography and she was flipping through textbooks on finance. Every time, our eyes met for just a second before I looked away first. She never tried to speak to me. Not at first. But I knew it was coming. And one evening, she finally found the courage. I had just finished a meeting when I stepped into the cool night air and saw her standing near the entrance. She looked different now, more grounded, more determined, but to me, she was still a ghost from another life. "Daniel." I paused, turned. She hesitated, then exhaled. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't say anything, because what was there left to say? Sorry wouldn't erase the past. Sorry wouldn't change the years I had spent hating her, resenting her, pretending she didn't matter. I waited, but she didn't add anything else. Just stood there, waiting for me to acknowledge it. So I did. I nodded. Once, then I walked away. Because I wasn't the man who waited anymore. Ryan Walker had disappeared from the city's social circles. I hadn't heard his name in months. Until I did. Emma had been making progress, or at least that's what it seemed like from a distance. She had found a routine, was picking up part-time work to get through school, and was no longer the woman clinging to survival. And then, out of nowhere, Ryan showed up at her doorstep. I didn't see it happen, but I heard about it. Someone saw them outside her apartment. Him, looking desperate. Her, looking like she had already made up her mind. For a long time, Emma Carter had been the woman who chased after love, after passion, after some fantasy of what life was supposed to be. But that night, for the first time, she was the one who walked away first. Because she wasn't that woman anymore. And I wasn't sure if I respected her for it, or if I just didn't care. I heard about Ryan Walker's downfall before I ever saw it for myself. It started with whispers. Small rumors drifting through business circles, muttered over whiskey glasses at networking events. Ryan was done. The industry that once humored his arrogance had shut its doors on him. The friends who once drank with him had moved on to better company. The women who once laughed at his charm had found richer men. And now, he had nothing left. I wasn't there when he first showed up at Emma's door. But I heard how it happened. Someone saw him waiting outside her apartment, his clothes wrinkled, his face hollow from exhaustion. The same man who once walked away from her without hesitation was now standing in the cold, hoping she would let him back in. He knocked. And for a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the door opened. Emma stood there, staring at the man who had once ruined her life. Ryan exhaled in relief, stepping forward. Emma, She didn't move, didn't step aside, didn't welcome him in. Don't, she said quietly. But Ryan had always been the type who pushed his luck. I messed up, he admitted, running a hand through his unkempt hair. I know I did, but Emma, I swear to God I've changed. She tilted her head, arms crossing over her chest. Have you? Ryan nodded too quickly, desperate. Yes, I was stupid. I let my pride get in the way. I let you down, but I can fix this. I can fix us. Emma let out a slow breath, looking at him like she was seeing him for the first time. For years, she had waited for this moment, for the apology, for the regret in his voice. And now that it was here, it meant nothing. Emma chuckled, the sound dry and sharp. You're not sorry, she said. You're only sorry because you lost everything. Ryan flinched. That's not true? Yes, it is, she cut him off. You're only here because you have nowhere else to go. Because the women you spent my money on are done with you. Because the world finally figured out that you're a fraud. Ryan's jaw clenched. Emma, please. You walked away first, she reminded him. You threw me away, and now you think you can come back? His hands curled into fists of frustration, but there was nothing left to fight for. He had gambled everything, and lost. Emma took a step back, shaking her head. I won't be your backup plan. Ryan's breath caught. Emma? She didn't wait for him to finish. She closed the door in his face. And this time, she was the one walking away. I didn't witness it myself, but I could picture it perfectly. Ryan Walker, standing alone in the cold, staring at the door that had just shut him out for good. I wondered if he finally understood what regret felt like. If he finally knew what it was like to be on the other side of a decision you can't take back. Because years ago, I had stood in a room just like that, watching Emma Carter turn her back on me. And now, she was the one who had moved on. And Ryan was the one left choking on regret. Los Angeles hadn't changed. But this time, Emma Carter had. The whispers no longer mattered. The judgment no longer cut deep. She had built something for herself, away from the wreckage of her past. And for the first time, she wasn't defined by the mistakes she had made. She was free. I didn't expect to see her that day, but life had a way of bringing things full circle. I was leaving a meeting when I spotted her outside the cafe across the street. She wasn't looking for me. She wasn't looking for anyone anymore. She stood on her own, a woman who had rebuilt herself from nothing. For a long time I had wondered if I would ever be able to look at her and not feel the sting of what she had done. And now, I just saw a stranger with a familiar face. She must have felt my gaze, because she turned. For the first time in years, neither of us looked away. She crossed the street, and suddenly, we were standing face to face, for the first time as equals. There was no tension, no bitterness, just acceptance. She studied me, like she was searching for something, maybe a piece of the man she once loved, but that man was gone. And so was the girl I had once given everything to. She smiled, soft and sincere. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady, "for once loving me." I didn't respond, because what was there left to say? I just gave her a single nod, and that was enough. She turned first, walked away without hesitation, and this time I let her go, because there were no more what-ifs, no more second chances, no more past holding either of us back. Only lessons learned and futures waiting to be written. And for the first time, I wasn't looking back. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content.